Hello, listeners. Welcome to the Fenix Logs. I am your host, Fenix Rising. You may have been wondering where I've been for the last couple weeks, and honestly, I don't blame you. The last time I spoke to you all, I told you all that I'd be back within the next week talking about QHHT, and while I had all the intention in the world in doing that, I also was in the process of some upgrades. So in between Christmas and New Year's, I bought a brand new computer because I wanted to be able to edit video mobily. I wanted to be able to do that. So after looking and deciding, that I wanted to stick with the Windows platform, I ultimately decided on an Asus VivoBook. After researching the specs and everything, I found a great deal on a laptop that is capable of doing what I need it to do mobily. So that is one thing that I started doing, was taking everything that I had from my desktop, asset wise, transferring it over to my laptop, trying to get everything set up there, and then literally day after episode 3 comes out, I have gotten all the assets transferred over, my hour-long loop that I had and everything else that goes along with it, but I need to download my fonts. I'm like, crap, I have some fonts that I need to download for both the titles as well as the thumbnails. So I go to download those, and I noticed something that I had overlooked in the past, and that was the licensing. So, for those of you that don't know, fonts are not free. Not all of them. Some of them are, but others have something called a font license. And a lot of them you can download for free, but just because you can download it for free does not mean that you can use it commercially for free. So font licensing, fun fact, very simple, can just Google it and figure out, is the font that you're using free to use commercially or not. In my case, the two that I had been using so far for these Fenix logs and all of my channel art have not been free for commercial use. So it's a good thing, I guess, that I am inconsistent and that my channel hasn't blown up yet, because that is essentially what I needed to focus on at that point, was to change my font, because had I blown up, I would have been in big trouble if the authors of those fonts found out. And I'm just very glad and grateful that that was not the case. So that is why I have these new fonts. So got the new fonts and thought, well, I need to do a new intro. And I thought, maybe I would do it in the same vein. Make it short, make it simple, snappy, all that, get right into it. After all, we're focusing on audio. We're not focusing on video, so why put too much effort into that? But then as that idea grew in my head, I thought, you know what? I have this idea for a really cool intro. And it started off with some whooshing ideas. I'm going through and I'm looking at these different special effects that my video editor has for titles. And lo and behold, this new laptop is able to process those special effects so much better than my desktop is. It's not even funny. And so I'm going through, looking at all of them, have these ideas. So over the course of a couple days, I create the intro that you all just saw a couple minutes ago. So I hope you like it. Took me a lot of time to get just right, to get perfect, but I've done that, and I love it. And I love my new fonts, and I played around. It took me probably 3 days or so to actually get that all working. So let's see, I started on this on a Friday, I believe. Yeah, because I got the laptop Thursday night and started that night transferring stuff over. And then I, after that, spent a whole weekend, pretty much a majority of the long weekend from New Year's Day and on that 3-day week, or 4-day, I had a 4-day weekend then. I spent the majority of that tweaking and getting everything right, and I just kept going back and revisiting actually throughout that week after. It was just like I had an idea and I'd get that idea down, and then I'd watch it through and be amazed, and then I was like, but what if I did this? So I just kept adding on to it until you see what you see now. You know, we have the cool staticky intro fading into the new, the brand new intro animation, which then with the new graphic style and just kind of the new vibe to my message, which is pretty cool overall. And it is honestly something that I didn't notice at first until I started getting into it and started looking at it. But my channel can really benefit from that, because I don't know, it's so much better aesthetically to look at the placement of everything, and there's a lot less unused space and things are more stylized. And I've actually gotten to use Krita, which is an art program very similar to Photoshop, except it's free, it's open source. You can do a number of things with it, and I found out how to make a glow effect. So before, whereas I was making this these titles that were just simply on the screen, now I'm creating a glow effect. I'm getting better with my special effects. I'm creating better visually and aesthetically. So, I got everything finished, got everything ready to go, and then this weekend struck, and this weekend was pretty busy. Friday was Rose's dad's birthday, so I get off work, immediately go over there and hang out with them, come home, we're tired, go to bed, fine, that's fine. Saturday rolls around, and you know what, we have to get up at 9 a.m. and we have to get ready. Well, I exaggerated, it wasn't 9 a.m. It was 11 a.m. Get up at 11 because we're supposed to leave at 11:45. People are running late. We wind up not leaving until about 12:30. We go to Pennsylvania, which is about a 2-hour drive. We drive 2 hours to the city in Pennsylvania that we need to go to, and then to meet up with family for a late holiday dinner, and then we come back. And we don't get back until about 9:30, something like that. It was pretty late when we got back. So at that point, just kind of wiped out, feed the cats, they got a late dinner, and then go to bed. And then Sunday, wake up. This is when we woke up at 9 o'clock. Wake up at 9, go help my friend paint their house that they're moving into. Owed them a favor. They helped me in the process of moving from the house from the city into the apartment that I now live in outside the city. So they helped me out along the way, so we did definitely owe them that favor. It was a pretty good day. We got paid with pizza and beer and good times. So, can't complain. But on the flip side of that, I'm also creatively always looking for something to do outside of work, whether it be writing a novel or whether it be doing these audio logs or trying to spread my message. I have a lot of information that I just want to share with the world in a creative way, and I have to have those creative juices fulfilled, otherwise I get very depressed. Because, I always have this idea that there has to be something more than just working a job that I'm not passionate about for a company that is not mine. And don't get me wrong, there's definitely ways that you can work through and make, situations more advantageous for yourself, and it all stems from your frame of mind, and ultimately you will dictate your future. It is just that I also know that there's more to life than that, and if I could get to a point where I am able to just sustain myself doing what I love, then I'd be happy. And I think that's where a lot of people are, and I think especially with the advent of the internet, and that is what more people are striving to be. I believe I heard something recently where being a YouTuber is now the world's number one most sought after job, which is, number one, absolutely fantastic. I respect and honestly am happy for all these kids that are growing up in this age that have this potential to do that. There are other things that are kind of risky, like of course you have to say the right things all the time, otherwise you won't be monetized. Sure, there are some ways around that. If you have a certain follower base, you can always go outside of YouTube. Sure, you can post your content on YouTube for general masses to find, and there are other avenues such as Patreon, or there are other avenues to get paid or sponsored in that way. But pretty much if you just want to do YouTube, you're pretty much looking at saying the right things, not being too controversial, just kind of putting information out there. So not going to go off too much on a tangent there, because that is not what I'm here for. But ultimately what I was trying to get at with that point is that I am really happy for the kids that can live in today's day and age and have that opportunity, have that capability to just talk about what they're passionate about, whether it be Pokemon or Final Fantasy or whatever it is, anime, video games. If you're a super fan, this is essentially where you want to be, and now you have an avenue of doing that. I would have killed for this as a kid, and now, hey, I'm an adult, and I have found other things to talk about. I found other avenues to be creative in. Sure, video games aren't necessarily constantly my thing anymore. Definitely play a much lesser role in my life than they used to. But where we are now, things are good. I'm passionate about fitness. I'm passionate about spirituality. I'm passionate about talking about consciousness and energy and the potential of life after death. For those of you that are skeptics, I refer to it as potential. For believers like me, I know it as an inevitability. But I'm not here to convince you if you don't believe it, and if you don't believe it, that's your prerogative. And I just find it interesting that the people that speak out against that possibility the most, people that are just like, I believe in science, everything strictly science-based. And don't get me wrong, science definitely has a place in the world, and ultimately it is, pretty understandable that people feel the way they feel about that. But at the end of the day, the people that talk out against that the most are the ones that fear death the most. And I've always noticed that the people that speak so vehemently against religion and things along those lines, and scoffing at the idea of life after death, they ultimately start to recant when they get older. They start to soften. They start to have to realize that, oh shit, this is going to end soon. And you know what? I am going to have to actually buck up and bite this bullet. I'm going to have to take this journey, my journey here in this world that I've known for however long is going to end, and I'm going to have to face it. And at that point, that's when people are like, there probably is some sort of a creator. I can't say for sure, but I don't know. It's just funny when you're bold and young and want to fight against the waves of the world. And sometimes you come off like a dick. I know I did when I was young. But hey, that was then. This is now. Alright, moving back on track here. So I got my computer all set up. Finally carved some time out. Here today. It is currently Tuesday and I am recording in my office. However, I do now have the capability to record essentially wherever the hell I want to. So long as I pack up my laptop and my microphone, I can essentially record in my car, anywhere, when the moment strikes. Just take my piece of paper with my little bullet points on there and go to town. Although right now I'm kind of freestyling it. I don't know if you can tell. Don't know. Don't care. Well, I kind of care. I care about a certain amount of quality, of course. But where I'm at right now, I wanted to do episode 3.5 in a more free-form type of way. It always feels like when I get in the zone and I can flow, things are better. And I'm not constantly checking notes or trying to refer back to certain things and figure out, well, how do I want this to flow and things along those lines. I'm trying to pump out a consistent message, and I'm trying to do it both as painless as possible. Editing these down for time and error is something that is definitely painful. So I try to make this as easy for me as possible. So now this is just an extra layer. I can do this on my lunch break, or I can just essentially do it hypothetically whenever I want. Just pop this out and start going. So I'm really excited with where I'm at and the potential that I now have of just freely doing this. And if I want to take it a step deeper, which I probably could if I really wanted to, but as I said, focusing on audio only, I have that fancy camera that I have not really been using, except for actually using OBS to watch myself work out and just check on form and make sure that I see the progress that I'm making every day as I continue on my fitness journey. So ultimately, those options are available to me, and I am just the type of guy that really likes options. I have found out that I am the type of person that really does not enjoy a schedule. The only time I really like a consistent schedule is when it comes to working a day job, because otherwise you can't plan your life. And that is no way to live your life, is to just guess when you're working. It is always great to know when you're working. So beyond that, I really don't like making all those plans. I usually have this tendency to make plans when I'm happy, and then when the time comes, I'm usually feeling a bit introverted or tired from work, or hey, I have an itch to do something creative when I get home, but I'm not going to have enough time to dedicate to it like I really want to, because I don't like half-assing things. So then I go do this other social thing and ultimately do not do what I wanted to be creative with, because I didn't have enough time to dedicate to it to get into a good rhythm, and I would essentially half-ass it. I almost said half-aff, but it'd be like that when you're a human. we kind of just mumble words. We trip over ourselves. It's natural. This is not overproduced, as I said in the preview episode. So, something very interesting came to me on the way to Pennsylvania, and I was talking to Rose's mom in the car, and we were talking about stress and anxiety and how I actually dealt with that. Just breathing exercises and taking a moment, taking at least 60 seconds to pull yourself out of the situation and breathe, calm, focus on your breathing, shut everything else off, ground yourself in and out slowly, and just releasing, just feeling that release and just accepting the situation for what it is. Because ironically enough, there is freedom. I'm wondering if you can hear the sirens going off, because there are a bunch of sirens going off, so that's why I paused. So I just release that stuff, let go, and as I'm telling her these things that I do, and of course I get into a situation where I'm like, okay, and I let her know, like, sometimes I'm in such a way that I need to work out because I have such a negative energy built up in my body that I have to, and it gets excited and it puts me at a state of unease that I have to work out to work off this energy before I can actually get myself back to a calm kind of middle base. So I'm telling her all this, and she just said, you have to tell the world. Like, this is information that needs to be shared. And it's so interesting that she said it the way that she said it, because I was actually really frustrated and I was doubting. And I had been playing Crisis Core Final Fantasy VII over Christmas break and over New Year's break. And over that whole holiday break, I'm playing these video games and I'm falling out of my focus on what I was doing. And I'm like, you know what? Maybe I should actually start focusing on writing my book again. Right? And I feel like I'm constantly torn between doing one thing and doing another. And that has always been a theme in my life. And it's like the two current focuses on that are work on my novel, work on this. And then the other thing is, do I live for today, or do I live for the future? Because ultimately, tomorrow's never promised, and I've had enough near-death experiences in my life to understand that completely, especially with what happened last year. And sometimes I just get really depressed that I live so much for the future. And that's something that I'm going to touch on here in a second. But what she said in that moment was completely reaffirming to my goal and my mission, and that whole weird message that I got that recently shifted. In December, it was in 3 months' time you will be king. In recent times, like literally, I think last week, I attuned, I meditated, and I said, in 2 months' time you will be king. And it's just focus on this, do what you need to do, and that autonomy will be yours. That is how I am interpreting it. Find it completely unbelievable that in 2 months' time I will reach a state of financial freedom to where I can just be and do this. But hey, the other side of that message was that I can't, there is absolutely no way for me to know how my life is going to turn out. I can't imagine how my life is going to turn out. So I've tried really hard to stop worrying about what happens, about trying to figure out a future that is not written, because it's impossible for us to figure that out. So got that reaffirmation, getting back into refocusing. It's always very difficult to do so after the big holiday, right? And that is what I refer to Christmas and New Year's as, is the big holiday, because Over here, we don't get a lot of vacation like over in like the UK, in the EU. We don't get that over here. Like summer breaks, and over in Europe and all that stuff, they get like summer breaks. They just take like 3 weeks off in the summer just because. And living over here in the States, I kind of get a little bit jealous, not gonna lie. But at the end of the day, they don't do that, and we get like basically you get a working vacation at best, unless you take off like the week between Christmas and New Year's. Then pretty much you get like 14 days off, and then you come back to work in a fog. And you're like, what am I doing with my life? Why am I here? Like, you just tasted freedom. It's not that, yes, we're going to rest and get back to it. It's not that at all. It is this completely other thing, this taste of freedom. And then you have this resentment when you come back, and, you're being forced into this whole thing. And it really makes you question the system, makes you wonder what you're doing with your life. Do I plan for today, or do I live for tomorrow? Well, I said that wrong. Do I live for today, or do I live for tomorrow? And that ultimately is the question. Do I write my book? Do I do these logs? That is the question, right? Or even there's a trifecta here with the creativity, because there's a time element there, and I need to work out to be happy and to maintain, because if I am not in shape, I'm not happy with myself. So I have to track what I eat, and I need to work out to maintain muscle mass and to maintain my physique. And it's just like, I got all these elements, and time, and wedding planning, and then all these social activities, and it all starts to add up, and it kind of gets very stressful. Do I live for today? Do I live for tomorrow? Do I work out? Do I record? Do I write my book? What do I do? The answer is actually shockingly simple, like most everything in this world. It's all in balance. Everything's all about balance. Everything is constantly shifting. You have personal deadlines you set. Sometimes they're completely unrealistic. Other times they are totally realistic. One of the big things that I need to tell myself, and this has helped me tremendously, is love yourself. True change cannot come unless it is from a place of love. Until you approach yourself and your goal from a place of love, and you treat yourself with the kind of respect that you would a friend or a lover, or hell, maybe your family, maybe you're really close to them, someone you admire, right? Or someone you're there to help. Unless you approach yourself from that place of love, whatever change you're going to make isn't going to stick, right? You're going to become resentful because you messed up. You're going to become resentful that you made a mistake, or what have you. Oh, I knew what I was supposed to do, but I didn't do it because instead I tried to sleep. Well, hey man, maybe you were really just overworking yourself, and you really needed those couple hours of rest. Hey, it's okay. It's okay. And that is one struggle that I myself have been working on overcoming this week. I've been really hard on myself lately. And even today, even earlier today, I had a bad day at work. I was really stressed out with everything, all the deadlines that are coming up for the things that I have to do. I was blowing them out of proportion in my mind, of course. Hyper stressed out. Of course, the environment that I'm working in has been stressed out a lot recently. Being an empath, I kind of absorb that into my being, and I'm trying to keep things bathed in light and keep morale high and do what I can there. But I can only do so much. I'm only one guy. And things start to affect me. So then, got all this other stuff. And as I had explained before, it just kind of piles on. It gets really tough. And then the nasty voice comes out and I start belittling myself and berating myself. And, oh, you dumbass. And just saying a bunch of stuff that I would never say to another person. But of course, I have no problem saying it to me because it's me, right? I'm different, and I hold myself to a different standard than I do to anyone else, and it's really an unfair standard. Leads to good things in the end, but it's tough, very tough, and that is one thing that I have been really trying to focus on and tackle, and that is just being kind to myself, showing myself the same kind of love that I would show other people. Because ultimately, if I don't treat myself with that kind of positivity, then I'm always going to be just destroying myself, right? Tearing myself down. I'll be my own worst enemy all the time, constantly. And it is not something that I'm willing to do anymore. We all can be our own worst enemy or our greatest ally. And just like I have talked about before, ultimately everything comes down to your mind. In the end, it is all you. It is how you decide to talk to yourself, how you decide to treat yourself. And we had the big holiday, and I'm coming back, and I have all these emotions that I'm battling, and I have other people's emotions, their anger and their frustration slamming into me full force at work. I have wedding planning that I'm constantly thinking of and getting ideas bounced off of me, and constantly giving energy to that. I'm always having these logs that I want to record, which now that I can, and distribute. I just want to get this message out there and talk about all these things. And then in the midst of that, then I'm also playing, Crisis Core. And I put 25 hours into that game in 4 days, and I wound up only doing like 6 story missions, and I was one-shotting most of the bosses. Like when you come across Angeal in his monster form, I literally used Tri-Fire and hit him like 4 times and he was dead. That boss fight, when I first played this game, I spent an entire day just trial and error trying to figure it out. But yet in this game, just because I took my time and I enjoyed it and I did all the side missions first, not all of them, but pretty much would get to a wall and then would go play the main game and then go from there. Like, I would just transition back and forth, and it just got into a groove, and you know what? I became pretty much like a god in that game, and I got addicted, and I just didn't want to do anything but play that game. But here we are. We're reintegrating, and it's kind of like in 1 week being able to feel the span of growth from the old me, who would just game constantly for hours and hours and hours, and now transitioning into adulthood, into all these creative goals that, by the way, I've always had creative goals, but I've always loved being entertained more. And I have to really focus on separating myself from that. And now that I'm as old as I am, now I am finding it a little bit easier to separate. And that's the discipline I've built up over the years. But I ultimately just, I find it easier to pull myself away from that stuff and just focus on what I need to do and then do it. And it's tougher when you're younger to do all that, especially when it comes to like partying and being social, because when you're in your early 20s, you have just a ton of energy. And it's tough to just sit in your room and do nothing and veg out, and just do nothing. It's really tough to do nothing when you have a lot of energy and you want to go just release it. And unfortunately, that's what being in your early 20s is. And now, in my mid 30s, I now know what it feels like to be an adult, completely tired, having way too much on your plate, because you're capable of handling it, right? You're capable of handling all that stuff. And then you do get those moments where it's just like, oh my God, I get to do nothing. And you just get so excited for it. It's so strange. But that is where I'm at. And I'm just so happy when I don't have any plans, nothing on my plate. People are not asking me for anything, and they don't want anything from me. And I'm just able to just hang out and focus on my creative endeavors, or just hang out and watch movies with Rose, or have a date night, just go on an impromptu date if we want to. It's just nice to have that lack of energy, and to also be able to just sit at home and stack cash, because that is ultimately how you stack cash, is you stop spending unnecessary money. So, episode 3.5, Interlude. I wanted to discuss why I had been delayed. I did that. I wanted to discuss what I'd been up to over the last couple weeks when we had that break. I did that. But one thing I did not talk about is how I sat down to record this and had to spend 25 minutes to figure out why my microphone that sounded so awesome on my desktop sounds like ass on my laptop. And the fun fact about that is if you have Windows 11 and you are using a USB microphone, there is a setting. It's something about like AI noise reduction. Just figure out how to get rid of that and your sound will be better. Bringing that up to this group chat I'm a part of. Turns out they also do that for audio out. So you might want to double check a couple things there to figure out if you're having an audio issue on Windows 11. So there's that little tidbit. So I was able to tell you all about that. I was able to talk about the reaffirmation and why I want to do in life, and just talk about my message. And while it might have come off as just mindless rambling for 40 minutes almost, it just ultimately brings me immense joy to do these things. And I touched on a lot of topics. I am going to get into QHHT next time. But for 3.5, I really felt like there had been a gap. I wanted to reassure you all that no, this is not a project I'm abandoning. I know I said I'd do it every single week. I don't know if it's going to be realistic to do it every single week. I'm going to try my hardest. It's mostly audio. I did the hard part in completely redoing my channel art and doing the new intro, which I hope you really all enjoy. And it's just something where there is more to come. No matter if there is a scheduled deviation or not, there will be more to come. Always down the pipeline in this format, because spirituality is a big thing. I really want to talk about it. I fixed my hip issues, which for those of you who know me, which most of you listeners are people who know me in real life, you knew that I had misdiagnosed sciatica. That was actually sacroiliac joint complications, and I could either get recurring shots to take the inflammation away, treat the inflammation, or I could do what I ultimately did, and that is find a natural way to fix it. And it's going to be a continuous thing, but I have to continuously work at it to keep it in a healthy spot and keep it strong. So that's another topic for another day. But that's, again, something down the pipeline. Really excited to talk about QHHT and Dolores Cannon. It's definitely out there, but those are the type of topics that I am the most excited to talk about, or the ones that are convoluted, the ones that are just out there. So, without further ado, we've talked about a lot. This has been longer than I anticipated it would be, as typical fashion for me. I want to thank you so much for listening this far. Another little tidbit, really quick before I go, is that if you have any questions or want to keep up to date on when episodes are going to be dropping, or if there are any delays, you might want to follow me on Twitter. It's right there on the screen. I tweet there seldomly, but hey, if there are any channel updates that I need to make, I do post them on there. Or if there are any random spirituality things that I'm thinking about, I post them there. Worth a look if that's up your alley. Gained a couple followers over the last couple weeks. Want to say thank you to those 2 individuals. Means a lot. It's only 2, but it's, been most that I've gotten in a couple years. So again, to you 2, thank you so much. It means the world. And I'm going to keep going. We're only going to keep going. So, apologies for keeping you all waiting so long. In suspense. But I'm back. And I'm here. And I'm not going anywhere. In fact, I doubled down. I have a laptop. I can do this more often. I can literally do this. I can record on my lunch breaks. I can edit on my lunch breaks. I can do whatever, so long as I have this laptop and my microphone with me. So next step is get in the bag. But either way, without any further ado, this is Fenix Rising, reminding you always to embrace the light and spread the light. I'll see you next time.